girls, Miss Pavlicek here from the Burlington Science Center. It's good to see you all today for our creepy crawly Wednesdays for the month of October. Today is going to be a very satisfying program. Today we are going to talk about the creepy crawly snakes. Now, they're not really crawly, sort of say. They're more slithery, but they definitely fit that creepy category because lots of people are also, just like with spiders and insects, a little nervous about snakes. So again, I like to teach respect and kindness to all creatures, no matter how big or small, no matter how creepy or non-creepy. And I hope you learn to respect snakes for what they are after we have our class today. So to get started, just like with all our programs, again, we are going to go over the characteristics of what makes an animal a snake and what group of animals they belong to. So if you had to guess, what group of animals do snakes belong to? Oh, you are right. Snakes belong to a group of animals that we call reptiles. And I have my little reptile board here that you might remember from our leopard gecko. And I'm going to put it right up here against my snake models. Hopefully they don't fall over. And behind these little cards are the clues that are going to tell us what makes an animal a reptile. So the first clue is all reptiles have a backbone. And what is a backbone? Go ahead, bend over and feel those little bumps going up and down your back. Yes, it is in your spine. In fact, most people think because snakes are so long and bendable when they move that they don't have backbones. But that's not correct. I'm going to show you a snake skeleton. Look at that. Right up top, we have the snake's head. And you're going to see down the center of the snake all of those little bones. What do we call those little bones again, boys and girls? We call them vertebra. And an animal that has a backbone is called a vertebrate. Very good. Now, when we look at all those little tiny bones, you're going to see coming off the sides of those bones is a thin bone, and those are the snake's ribs. So that back starts way up by the head, and that backbone goes all the way down until where the ribs end. Very, very cool. So indeed, reptiles, like snakes, have a backbone. Next, snakes are cold-blooded. And you might remember, cold-blooded does not mean that their blood is cold. Cold-blooded means that they can't regulate their body temperature. So if you're a snake and the temperature's going up, your body temperature goes up, or you have to sit in the sun. It's called basking to make your temperature go up. And if it starts to get cold outside, that reptile's body temperature will get cold. So it changes with the environment. The next characteristic we have, reptiles breathe with lungs. Take a deep breath in and out. So snakes in that long, skinny body also have lungs. Next, snakes lay leathery eggs. When they want to have their young or have their babies, they lay leathery eggs. And here's a picture of some baby snakes hatching out of their leathery eggs. Now, one of the neat things about snakes is most do lay eggs, but some snakes have live babies, so they can lay eggs or even have live birth just like humans. And I have a snake later that we'll meet that does lay live babies. Now, when a snake lays a group of eggs, we call it a clutch. Just like a chicken, when they lay eggs, a group of eggs is called a clutch. Can you say that? Clutch. Good job. Awesome. The next characteristic is what snakes are covered with, what their body is. And their body is covered with dry, scaly skin. Yes, boys and girls. Some of you might think that snakes are gooey and slimy. Well, unfortunately, they are not. I want you to feel your fingernail. Go ahead and feel your hair. Oh, isn't it marvelous? Your hair and your fingernails are made of the same exact stuff that a snake's skin or scales are made out of. Look at those scales. The stuff that a snake's scales are made out of is called keratin. Can you say that? Keratin is what your fingernails and your hair is made out of. It grows, and it is the same thing that a snake's scales are made out of. And how does your fingernails and hair feel to you? Is it slimy? No, it's actually really dry and smooth. And that is what a snake feels like. Dry and smooth for that scaly skin. Now, another neat thing about reptiles, we say that they can live on land, which we call them terrestrial, but they can also live in water, which is called aquatic. And snakes can actually be terrestrial or aquatic too. Certain snakes live on land and certain snakes can go in the water. So pretty neat. So when you're swimming, you have to be careful because there are snakes in water as well. And the last characteristic, we say their babies look like adults. And what that means is if you have a little snake, like a little baby, you know, a small snake, the mom looks just like the baby. It's just a lot bigger. They don't change, so they look very similar to each other. Awesome. So our characteristics today, they have a long spine called a backbone. They are cold-blooded. Their body temperature changes. You'll often see reptiles out in warm weather, basking in the sun. They breathe with lungs like we do. They have leathery eggs or live babies, dry, scaly skin like our hair or fingernails, and their babies look just like they do. So mama snake has little baby mini snakes that look just like her. Well, there are lots of snakes in the world, thousands and thousands of species, but I thought it would be neat to show you some pictures of snakes that live here in Massachusetts. You will be meeting 2 live snakes later today, but neither of those snakes come from Massachusetts. So it's important for us to learn about what wildlife is in our backyards and how to identify it. Now, most snakes won't bother you. They will not bite you. They will not attack you. They will move away from you, but you always want to respect them and give them space. So let me show you some of these pictures that I have. The first snake is called a garter snake. How many of you have seen one of these? They're fairly small and they love to be in your yard and your garden. And they have these beautiful stripes. Garter or garden snake. You can call it either. The next type is called an eastern milk snake. Look at that beauty. Look at those marks. Unbelievable. And just like our fingerprints, snakes have patterns that can identify them from one individual to another. The next type of snake is called a ringneck snake. Why do you think it's called that? Yes, of course, silly, because it has a ring around its neck. Now, this is the snake that is aquatic. They're called the northern water snake. And these guys love to hunt for different animals in the ponds and rivers and streams. And it's okay to see them on the shore, but you'll often see them swimming through the water or near the water, northern water snake. Now, there are two types of black snakes in Massachusetts. The smaller is called the black racer, and the bigger of the two is called the black rat snake. Now, look at these snakes. What do you notice is different from them? Because obviously they're both black. What do you think? You might notice that the black rat snake has a little bit of white on the underneath side. You can see it up near the face, where the black racer tends to be a little more solid black. Also, I said the black rat snake gets really, really big. The black rat snake is the largest native snake in Massachusetts. It can reach up to 7 to 8 feet long. Measure that later and you can see how long that snake is. Now, the other neat thing about the black rat snake is it is one snake that is endangered in Massachusetts. What does that word endangered mean? It doesn't mean you're in danger, I promise. It means that there's not many of them found here. And even though they're common down south in Massachusetts, black rat snakes are endangered because there just aren't very many living here. Now, this is a very cool snake. It's called the Eastern hognose. And I'm going to hold this up close. You're going to see that they have a really flat, weird head. And they call them hognose because that front part of their head almost looks like a giant nose. And what's neat about this snake is one of its defense mechanisms is it plays dead. And then the animal thinks that it's dead and you can run away. And it even releases a stinky odor when it plays dead. Woo! So pretty cool, the hognose snake. Now, the last two snakes might really make some people nervous. This is what we call a venomous snake. Now, that means that inside the snake, it has a special part that gives venom. And venom can be very harmful to animals and even human beings. So these are the snakes you have to be really careful with. In fact, again, you just want to respect them and give your space. The two types of venomous snakes, are the northern copperhead with that beautiful copper color. Hold that a little closer. And the other one is called the timber rattlesnake. Yeah. And these are both, especially this one in the rattlesnake family, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on in defense. But don't worry, there are only a few hundred individual snakes of these in the whole entire state of Massachusetts. Out in the island near the Wachusett Reservoir, some just south of Boston. But don't worry, you're not likely to come in contact or near these, but always be respectful and give snakes your space. All right, well, now that we've learned about the types of snakes that we found in Massachusetts and that they're reptiles, we're going to meet a live snake and go over some of those snakes' parts and function, because snakes are really fascinating animals. Now, to do this, I'm going to introduce you to a corn snake. And this corn snake's name is Galileo. Some of you might recognize Galileo from some of his programs in his classroom. I'm going to wheel his tank over here. And you're going to notice that I'm taking off special clips on Galileo's tank because snakes are really good climbers, even though they don't have feet or arms. Can you imagine trying to climb something without feet or arms? Later on, go ahead and try to lay on the floor and get up onto your couch without using your arms and legs, just like a snake would. I'd love to see some videos of you trying. Go for it. Not right now. Now, when we handle snakes, we use what's called a snake hook. A snake hook is designed to not frighten a snake, and it's also to keep us protected. And I'll talk about why in a little bit. Now, in Galileo's cage, he's got a little hidey cave, a water dish, and a little plant and a log for him to climb. Hello, Galileo. I'm going to use this snake hook to pick up Galileo. Oh, of course, now he's trying to go in his cave. Excuse me, Galileo. Let's come out and see the boys and girls. Wow, look at this beautiful snake. Now, my first question is, boys and girls, why do you think we call them corn snakes? Is it because they're corny? No. What do you think? Some of you might think that his skin or his scales looks like corn, right? It's got the same pattern. The same pattern, right? Look at those scales and look at that corn. Oh, he's coming around the other side there. Hi, are you giving me a hug? Thank you, Galileo. Well, it's not because they look like corn, even though they do. But some of you might say, ooh, just like me, I love to eat corn and so does the snake. No, snakes do not eat corn. In fact, they call them corn snakes because they like to eat something that lives in cornfields. What do you think might live in cornfields that might eat corn that the snake might eat? You got it. Rodents, mice, voles, shrews. So the farmers that have cornfields love these snakes because the mice eat and destroy their corn. Pretty cool. So we'll talk a little bit more about what Galileo eats. But the first thing I want you to talk about is look at what Galileo's doing. Galileo, are you being fresh to the boys and girls, sticking out that long tongue? Look at that tongue. No, he's not being fresh. What you're going to notice is that tongue is forked. It splits at the end. And that forked tongue is sticky. And what it does is Galileo is tasting the air molecules or particles. And on the top of his mouth, he has a special part called a Jacobson's organ. Can you say that? Jacobson's organ. It's a special part or organ, and it tells Galileo's brain what he's tasting. So it's kind of like smelling. It's kind of like tasting. It's really sensing. And you'll notice that snakes constantly do that. And here's another picture of that forked tongue on a snake. And it's shiny in the picture because it's sticky. So that's really cool. So they use that snake to sense their world. Now, the next thing I want you to look at is look at Galileo's eyes. They're beautiful, they're red, and he has a center pupil. Now, one of the things about their eyes is they don't have the best eyesight. They can see really well in short distances. So Galileo can see really well just in front of his face. But their eyes are special because they don't have eyelids like us. So if you blink your eyes, you have eyelids. Eyelids help moisten our eyes. They help protect our eyes when we need to close them. But snakes do not have eyelids. And I'll show you another picture of a snake's eye really up close. Look at that. Wow. So the one thing about no eyelids is you can't really tell when a snake's sleeping. So that little hook that I used, it's so when I pick him up, if he's sleeping, I don't scare him. And when animals get scared, sometimes they bite. Galileo has never bitten anybody. He's super friendly. But just in case, I touch him with that hook. So we don't know when a snake is sleeping. They sleep with their eyes open. Can you imagine? All right, your next task, besides trying to get on the couch, is later on, when you go to sleep, try sleeping with your eyes open. I don't think it's going to work, but good luck. But they do that. The other thing is when snakes have their eyes, they have a special covering to their eye. It's called a spectacle. Spectacles are like eyeglasses. So the spectacle in the snake actually protects the eye. And we'll see if we can see it if I get up nice and close. You know, he looks a little shiny because of the light. So he has those little spectacles. Now, the next part of the snake when we move down is his nose. Now, you're going to see he's got one nostril on that side. It's red in front of his eye. And he's got one nostril on the other side. But snakes don't use their nostrils at all for smelling. They can't smell. Remember, they use their tongue. So that nose is there for one purpose. Same purpose as ours besides smelling. So if you close your mouth, each nostril is connected to each lung, so they use it to breathe. And we learned that reptiles like Galileo breathe with lungs. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the snake's mouth. Snakes have very special mouths, and in fact, most people are nervous about snakes because they say, Miss B, the snake's going to bite me. Well, in fact, biting in the snake's mouth is the only way, or the real way, that Galileo has to protect himself. He doesn't have hands. He doesn't have legs. He can slither away, but really his defense is inside his mouth. Now, because they have their mouth and it's their only way to defend themselves, you can imagine inside their mouth are some pretty sharp teeth. They're gnarly, dude. I'm going to show you a skull or the inside of a snake's mouth. And you can see those sharp, gnarly teeth. Look at them. And they're curved backwards. In fact, in a couple weeks, I will be doing a snake feeding for Wild Wednesday, and we'll learn a little bit more about snakes' mouths. Now, with their mouths, they catch and they eat their prey. And I have a little bucket here with some of the food that snakes eat. They, of course, like to eat rodents like mice. Some snakes, like that northern water snake, will eat fish. There are lots of smaller snakes, like the garden snakes, eat bugs and worms and insects. And some snakes will even eat spiders. Some will steal eggs from nests. And some snakes can even catch birds. Some snakes even eat other snakes. Ah! Not Galileo, though. He gets fed dead, thawed mice. Now, we call snakes, or an animal that only eats meat, a carnivore. Can you say that? Carnivore. Oh, are you whispering in my ear? Oh, what are you saying, Galileo? Oh, you want them to see your scales up close. Because remember, those scales are made of keratin, like our nails and our fingernails and hair. One thing you'll notice about his scales are the scales on top overlap each other, kind of like a pattern. And they're there to protect him so he doesn't get injured. And it's kind of like the shingles on your roof. When you go outside, look at your roof, because that's like his scales are. They overlap. But if I flip him over to his belly, what do you notice is different about his belly scales? That's right. They're flat and long. And that's because that is the surface area, or the larger scale is there to help him move and push along. And you can see when he wants to move, the snake has thousands of muscles, and he's using those muscles to push on the surface with those big scales to help him move along. So that's pretty cool. Now, with those scales, just like some animals, when Galileo grows and he gets too big for his scales, he has to do something. He has to molt or shed. And when a snake molts or shed, it's pretty cool. What happens is their body releases a liquid, and it turns the snake a milky white color. We call it opaque because you can't see through it, and their eyes get really cloudy. And then that fluid lifts the top layer of the skin. And then the body absorbs that fluid, and it goes away, and it leaves the dry skin on top. And then, just like when you peel your socks off, Galileo will press with his nose and push, and the snake will shed the skin inside out. And when they do, it's pretty impressive. Let me show you. Now, hanging up on the wall here, I have a shed from Galileo. Isn't that cool? They shed everything from the head all the way down to the tail. But here is a shed from my next snake that we're going to meet. Whoa, look at the size of that shed. And that is from oh, here we go, an even larger snake. Wow, look at that. We've got those belly scales, which are wider and longer, and then the top scales. Pretty cool. So they shed and molt that skin. Now, all of that body has muscles, and they have lungs and a stomach and reproductive parts. But then we get down to the bottom of the snake is where his tail is. But I don't know where his tail is. Do you know where his tail is? If I was to stretch Galileo out, how long do you think Galileo's tail is? Can you show me with your fingers? Is it this big? Is it this big? Is it this big? Well, just in case you can't remember, I'm going to show you that skeleton again. Remember, where the ribs are and the backbones is where his spine is. So if we follow those ribs all the way down, you're going to notice near the bottom, the ribs stop. And that is where the snake's tail is. And with Galileo, if I hold him up like this, I don't want to hold him too much because I want to support his back, but down at the bottom here, you're going to see his body gets really skinny. Right here is where his tail starts, and there at the end is where its bottom is. And right where I'm holding is a special scale. It's hard to see, but I'll bring it up close. Right here is a special scale or opening, and that is where the snake goes to the bathroom. And we call that his cloaca. Not only does he go to the bathroom, but that's where he would lay his eggs. If it was a girl, sorry, Galileo, or it would have live birth. So very, very cool. So I'm going to put Galileo away because our time is almost up for today. And we want to be able to meet our last snake here. Let me just find Galileo's top. Now our last snake, if any of you saw my Staying Safe in Burlington Schools video, we were talking a little bit about social distancing. And when we social distance, that means we're staying far apart from each other. And there's a certain length that we say that we social distance. And that's somewhere around 6 feet. So that will give you an idea of who my next friend is that I'm going to pull out. You might remember her name because we say, I'm going to put these boards down so we don't break anything. We say when we social distance, we sage distance. And sage is a beautiful snake. Again, I need my bigger snake hook here. And I'm going to pick her up. Hopefully she's in, right. Oh, boy. Oh, Miss P needs to do some more weightlifting. 1, 2, 3. Whoa. Come on, Sage. Why don't we hang out here on my belly, which is a little bit easier to hold her because she is so big. I want to introduce you to our boa constrictor named Sage. Sage is about 6 feet long, and she is native to an area of South America. Now, corn snakes are not found in Massachusetts, but corn snakes are found all the way down from New Jersey to Florida to Louisiana. But to see this snake, you would have to go to the jungle or the rainforest in Central or South America. And Sage is so strong. She's incredibly strong with lots of muscles. And snakes like to go up around your neck because you're warm. But I don't want her up near my face or my neck because we want to stay safe. Look at her. Oh, she's looking at you guys. And you can see she is, there we go. Take a look at her. Also sticking out her tongue. She's making a very quiet hissing noises. Snakes will hiss to communicate, but they'll also hiss to protect themselves. Snake just wants to give, she just wants to give me a hug today. It's really sweet. Now, hissing can be a form of protecting themselves or just talking, but it's an important way that they communicate with each other. You can see that boas have a beautiful pattern, and boa constrictors are what we call arboreal. Can you say that? That means that Sage can actually climb up trees to eat things like monkeys, rats, birds, lizards. Wow. Now, Galileo might live about 20 years, but Sage can live 20 to 30 years. And unlike corn snakes that lay eggs, boa constrictors are one of the snake species that have live babies. And Sage can have anywhere between 40 to 60 live babies at a time. Parents, would you like to have 40 to 60 live boas? No, maybe not. But she is an awesome snake. She was someone's pet. They went off to the Navy and the parents didn't want to take care of her, but she is a wonderful addition. I do not recommend boa constrictors as pets because they get very big and they're very strong, all of these muscles, and you have to be very experienced because if not, they will hold on to you and you won't know what to do. Now, she's called a constrictor because that's how they kill their prey. They will wrap around their prey and constrict and squeeze until that animal can no longer breathe and it expires and then she eats it. Now, if an animal isn't a constrictor, it's that venomous snake species. And one last thing I want to show you before we go is my friend gave me a rattlesnake head. This is a real one. His name is Michael Rabowski from Rainforest Reptile Shows. You can check out their website. And it is awesome. So snakes that don't constrict use those teeth called fangs. And you'll see them, they're sharp in the middle there. And they inject that venom into their prey. And the other thing they have, which is very neat, is they warn you first. Just like that tarantula will warn you before it bites you, they use their rattle. Listen to this. Are you ready? It's pretty cool. Wow, Sage is trying to explore the table here. But next week, boys and girls, Mr. Musselman is going to do some really cool pumpkin science to end our month of October. And the week after, we might do something different or neat. Mr. Musselman wants some turns doing Wild Wednesday. But after that, our next session will be a snake feeding session. And we'll learn about why snakes eat the way they do and why we eat the way they do. And it'll be really neat. So I hope you enjoyed learning today about the science of snakes. And I look forward to seeing you on another Wild Wednesday in the future. If you have any other questions or things you'd like to ask me, please email me at pavlicek@bpsk12.org. Thank you guys so much. It was great seeing you again today, and I hope you learn to respect snakes for the neat animal they are. Say bye. See you later. Have a good day.